over the last few weeks as to whether or not it is a challenger for Obzon Midrange's spot in the metagame. When Obzon got really big about a month ago, Mardu started winning tournaments. Since then, though, Mardu has gone down. Obzon has stayed. But this matchup still pretty decent for the Mardu deck.
Yeah, the Mardu deck is one of the more underrated decks in the format, as Steven is here with 7-1. You know, it's definitely a good deck. It's got powerful cards. Butcher the Hordes, Goblin Rabble Master, Crackling Doom. Those cards are all very, very powerful cards. It's just kind of an underrated deck. As you see, he's going to start off with a couple of Pain lands, while Boswell had a Temple to start things off with. This should be fun. I mean, two mid-range decks going after each other. Just a couple of lands to start things off. They normally get started on turn number 3. So we'll see if Dupal has something like a Goblin Rabble Master here on the third turn as he plays another copy of Battlefield Forge. And now it's a Hordling Outburst. So he'll take 2 to put 3/1/1s into play.
Yeah, all Pain lands for Dupal, which Pain lands are generally pretty good on the mana as long as you have a couple legitimate lands to go next to them. But when you're on the all Pain land draw, I mean, you basically have a Mana Barbs in play.
Boblight's going to take care of the Goblin tokens. Boswell has to take 1 to cast that off the Llanowar Waste, so it's 19 to 18, even though no combat damage has been dealt just yet.
Let's see who can stick threats here first. You want to deploy threats in this matchup that can't be 1-for-1 very easily. This is a mid-range mirror, so Hordling Outburst is pretty good there. It did get 1-for-1 by Bioblight, but there aren't very many cards that can do that. Players are also looking for cards that have enter the battlefield effects. So Siege Rhino, once again, is at its best in this sort of matchup.
Sandstep Citadel does come down and play for Boswell. Dupal's going to play a Sorin, Solemn Visitor. That'll come in, and we'll see where it's going to go. Elevator's going to go down, so a 2/2 Flying Vampire token will come in. There is Tom Ross, and Steven will pass the turn back over to Boswell.
This is the kind of threat that Dupal wants to make in the matchup. Even if Boswell takes care of the Sorin, it will likely cost him 2 cards to do it.
There's a Siege Rhino.
Hard to argue with that guy.
Yeah, that's true. He's going to gain 3. He's going to drain 3. Dupal's down to 13. Boswell's up to 22. Dupal will draw a card here, so we'll see what he's able to put together in this turn. One thing we know about the Mardu deck, no shortage of removal.
No. Whereas Obzon has bigger threats, Mardu has better removal.
Take up the Sorin, attack for 3 here in the air. Dupal's going to gain 3 life back, so he's going to go up to 16. And Boswell will go down to 19. So
steal that Siege Rhino life right back.
Yeah. Life totals are fluctuating quite a bit here, but that's what happens in this matchup. There's a Chain to the Rocks.
Fortunate for Dupal that he has 3 Pain lands and 1 basic, but that basic was a mountain.
Well, Boswell's draw, we know they come in packs. It's another copy of Siege Rhino.
And you see, if he gets that 5th land and this Rhino manages to survive, Boswell will be in a great spot. He has a pair of Wingmate Rock in his hand.
Well, that creature is dead. It's pricey to get off the table. This Dupal's going to have to take some damage to cast the Crackling Doom, but it takes care of the problem. So we're going to go back, not back Boswell's way, we'll go back Steven's way, actually. He'll draw a card here.
It's a Sarkhan. That's no help right now. The Sorin is really helping Dupal out because he's dealing so much damage to himself that he really needs a life gain source to make up for it. And Sorin's doing that for him right now. He doesn't actually have too many sources of life gain, so if he didn't have Sorin, these lands would be catching up to him a lot harder.
Looks like it's just going to be an attack here. I thought maybe he might pump Sorin, but he's just going to take it down. So there is the token. I just pass the turn back, and this could be the plan, which is just make some 2/2s and you kill everything that you play. Temple of Malady was the draw for the turn, so no 5th land. That'll come into play on tap.
Right, and you can't make the Wingmate Rocks just yet. And really, he'd like to trigger Raid on them if at all possible. If you see his hand, he has Obzon Charm. That's not going to be great right now.
Yeah, you can tell he's a little bit frustrated on how this draw's come together here. Siege Rhinos were good, but they both died very, very quickly. See, there's also a Johnny Mentor of Heroes in hand.
A lot of great 5-drops. And this is where a deck where your curve is so high can be awkward. So Obzon Charm doesn't really have any good modes right now. There's no creature to target. Drawing 2 and losing 2 isn't even particularly good for Boswell because even if he has 2 more cards, it's unlikely he'll be able to play 2 spells in a turn during the relevant parts of this game. You know, his next plays are more or less spoken for between these Wingmate Rocks and a Johnny.
Man number 5 comes down. There's Sarkhan, and now it's a Planeswalker and dominating things. Boswell's going to reach for some mana here.
Yeah, that was huge. The Sarkhan, Boswell would have otherwise had to pass the turn, but because Dupal played Sarkhan, he was actually able to use the Abzan Charm there.
He's going to have to take 6, as these tokens have been granted +1/+0 from Sorin. Boswell going to draw a card. It's a copy of Bioblight. Okay. That's one he can use to work himself back into this thing.
A lot of opportunity cost here. He's got these Wingmate Rock. He also has, looks like, 2 Ajani. 2 Ajani, 2 Wingmate Rock. It's kind of awkward there, but then a Bioblight. So he'd like to Bioblight the vampires.
Looks like he's going to start with just Wingmate Rock, though.
Hard to argue.
And see if this can stabilize things. You know, he's hoping that Dupal doesn't have some sort of removal spell, right? No, please, no Crackling Doom.
It's hard here because you'd expect Dupal has a kill spell. That's what Mardu does. And in fact, he has
hand.
3.
Yeah. A Lightning Strike, which won't take care of Wingmate Rock, but the Murderous Cut in his hand will. You saw him check his graveyard. And sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire here, Will Steven. So he's going to go search up a land. Sorin playing a huge role in this game.
I think on that last turn, Boswell probably needed to Bioblight, and it may end up costing him the game. So Dupal has a 2-turn kill line here. He can Murderous Cut the Wingmate Rock plus Sorin. That'll deal 6 to Boswell. Then Dupal gets to untap with a pair of Lightning Strike in his hand. That's the remaining 6.
Oh, that's what it takes.
That's a line that's hard for Boswell to stop. I imagine Dupal will go with it. He's taking advantage of the fact that his spells are just a little cheaper than Boswell's.
2. There's a cut. Get that thing off the table.
Oh, and he actually can do it all this turn. This is just lethal right here.
So he attacks here for 6. Does he have 2? I think his hand might be Strike and Stoke.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay, it's not strike. So
Yeah, I mean, it's not lethal, but it is
it's lethal. Yeah.
The burn spells gave him the reach necessary to get the job done here. There's a Plains. And you can tell Boswell's pace of play slowed a little bit. He knows he's in some serious trouble right now.
Wingmate Rock is such a high variance card in these matchups. If you're ahead, Wingmate Rock will snowball you to the victory. If you're gonna get the raid trigger to happen and get 2, 3, 4s, it's really hard to lose when resolving Wingmate Rock. But the problem is when you're even or behind, it's often very difficult to resolve that raid trigger. We saw Boswell go for Siege Rhino, another Siege Rhino, but both of them died right away.
Soak the Flames will put him down to 2. An untap here from Steven. Draw cards, Nomad Outpost. I think he'd like to try to get the job done without having to actually use another burn spell, but he's able to actually get a little bit of information here to see, okay, you have multiple copies of Bioblight. Good to know. Here's a Lightning Strike. Take care of you. Move forward. So Stephen Dupal is going to win game number 1 here over Andrew Boswell. Mardu midrange up a game over Abzan midrange. So we take a look at the sideboard. You've got the bosses in front of you.
Start with Boswell. One of the things that really got to him that game was that his spells were more expensive. And this is one of the reasons that this matchup can be difficult for Abzan. They can get burned out. That's something that they cannot do. By and large, Mardu is paying less to kill Abzan's creatures than Abzan is paying for the creatures. So how does he combat this, I suppose? You look at his sideboard. He has a lot of his own mid-range cards. He has another copy of Sorin, which is usually good in this matchup. He can try to go bigger. He has copies of Elspeth in his deck. Those are possibly better than Wingmate Rocks. I'm not entirely sure whether he has the time to play Elspeth, but you might see him switch over to those. Otherwise, it's just diversifying his removal. You see cards like Drown in Sorrow, Hero's Downfall, and Utter End all available to him.
Other side of things, I've got an Utter End, 2 Read the Bones, 3 copies of Anger of Gods, 2 copies of End Hostilities, a Glare of Heresy, 2 Elspeth Sun's Champion, and Erase, and 3 copies of Thoughtseize. If you want discard, you can certainly have it. Read the Bones to kind of bridge the gap into the later game where I think is where we're probably headed no matter what. And then you got End Hostilities as a Wrath effect. I like Glare of Heresy here to take care of Siege Rhino, and we saw Wingmate Rock and a Johnny, and you have to assume this deck has Elspeth, so this thing can Glare is nice, and then he has Elspeth of his own. So a lot of really good options here, actually.
Yeah, go big. Elspeth's great in mid-range mirrors. Thoughtseize. The fact that Boswell was main decking 4 Thoughtseizes did give him, I think, an advantage in game 1. It just didn't. It just didn't play out for him.
Yeah. I mean, his draw wasn't great. You know, his hand was cluttered at the end of the game with the two Ajani's and the 2 Wingmate rocks. That was the issue for him. So
those are all the 5s in his deck.
Yep. I mean, we'll see if it comes back to bite him. Maybe he'll shave down a couple of 5s. Don't know what his configuration will look like, but we'll find out in game number 2 here, which will be underway in just a moment. But we will take a look at Season 1 of 2015. It has been announced, and now it's got commentators too. There's going to be a lot of Patrick and I. But as we see Columbus, Philadelphia, Washington, Indianapolis, you'll be joining us for some of the shows as well.
I'll try to make an appearance every now and then.
I don't mind. I would love to have you on board. Maybe we'll see you playing in some of these things. Who knows? But Columbus, Philly, DC, Indy. Then after that, we're going to Houston. We're going to LA. And then you'll be joined by Patrick in Baltimore. I'll be in Mexico enjoying my brother's wedding. And then we'll be at Grand Prix Miami. After that, a little Dallas. And then a little invitational back here in Richmond.
Right, so that's your quarter 1. Remember, we had the Richmond. This is where we started last year with our first invitational. We're going to start with the invitational of quarter 1 again in Richmond as we build up toward that one for the 2015 season.
And you think that's a lot of me. Patrick has to work every single show. He doesn't have a weekend off for the first 4, 8, 10 shows of the year. He's stuck. He's just going to be in airports and hotels. Poor guy. But it should be fun. We will be the commentary team for next year. Myself, Patrick Sullivan, and Matthias Hunt for all your shows. So we hope you guys aren't sick of us just yet.
Not yet, because you will be.
Yeah, you will. You don't have much of a choice, you know, because we're not going anywhere. But we just hope that you're not sick of us. That's all. A lot of action for 2015. It's going to be so awesome. We announced brand new organized play changes yesterday on Star City Games. So if you haven't seen those, definitely check out the announcement by our president, Pete Hoffling. We've talked about him some here this weekend during this show. We'll be doing it more today and tomorrow during our Legacy Open. The times are changing. Got some exciting stuff on the way, and we are really, really looking forward to it. We hope you guys are too here for the Open Series. 2014 has been a huge success, so we thank everybody who's watched and who's come and played, including all 476 players here this weekend.
Absolutely.
Imagine
good
just
turnout.
Booming.
Yeah. And really, that's one of the reasons when people are asking about the organized play changes. I know that there was a lot of reaction to them. I think both people kind of wanting to know what the motivation behind it was is that with these Star City Standard Opens getting to be 10 rounds, getting to regularly passing 500 players, one-day tournaments weren't fair to the people entering anymore. It was putting, I think, it was an unrealistic expectation on players.
Yeah, you have to go 8-1.
Yeah, right here we see a 7-1 matchup where, you know, the loser of this is going to be out of contention. And so we recognize, you know, these were never designed to have this many players, so we made it a 2-day tournament, which is really what it needed to be.
Yeah, you think of the new system where we'll have a 2-day tournament, 9 rounds on day 1, 6 rounds on day number 2. Whoever wins this match, well, both of them will be playing in day 2, first of all. And second of all, you know, whoever wins this match would have a nice advantage going into day number 2, but, you know, whoever loses this match, they can still make top 8 on day 2, where under our current structure, you know, whoever loses this match is devastating for them. So the changes in the air, and it's going to be a lot of fun for next year, we do promise, but we aren't there just yet. You see Steven looks like he's going to take a mulligan down at 6 cards.
So we were wondering, after we made the decision that we had to have that 2-day events really were what had to happen, and the question is, well, how do we do the formats for that? We normally had a standard and legacy, and Star City is still committed to hosting some of the best legacy tournaments in the country, so made sure that we had enough of these opens are legacy, that we still have that, and there's still legacy tournaments along with now modern tournaments every week, every SCG weekend.
Yeah, just a lot of action. I mean, we're going to have, as you mentioned, you'll be able to play standard, modern, or legacy at every single Open Series event in 2015. So whatever is your favorite, that's what you get to rock with. The boss is going in serious mode right now.
Oh man, okay, no sweatshirt.
I'm surprised the shirt has sleeves on. I'm not like really big of a fan of that, as most of his wins comes with no sleeves, though. The sweatshirt approach has clearly worked today since he's sitting at 7-1. He's got a Sandsep Citadel to start. Temple of Silence here from Steven. Going to put the top card to the bottom. We're underway in game number 2 of round 9. Let's see what the second land will be and if there's a Caryatid coming. Windswept Teeth. Sacrifice that. Go search up something. We'll see what the follow play will be. You gotta be pretty happy, man. A lot of control decks are doing well this weekend.
Control decks are doing well. Love to see one of them make top 8.
Ali and Shaheen in top 8 contention, both sitting in X and 1.
I really like Ali on Trazi's deck. It takes, and I'd love to see it do well, it takes a lot of guts to run that kind of curve.
4 dig through time, 4 treasure cruise.
And then 4 Despise, 4 Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
That is a commitment, and I like that.
Boswell has the acceleration here with Sylvan Caryatid, so he'll be able to play likely the first relevant threat. He's going to play Temple of Silence. Take a look at the top card. That's going to stay there. And there is Sylvan Caryatid. Just going to pass the turn back over to Steven. Steven draws a copy of Sorin. That's land number 3 in Battlefield Forge. This is a Hordeling Outburst, so I'll have to take 1 to cast it. So 3 1/1s in play here now for Dupal.
Boswell does have the BioBlade for this. Not sure he'll spend it this way, as the Sylvan Caryatids actually take care of the 1/1s very well. His big payoff card is Wingmate Rock, but you may see him try to get to a board state where he can have that raid trigger for Wingmate Rock.
And Offensa the foremost is Boswell's play. No land for him, just going to pass the turn back. So when you think of Avazon midrange, you think of the deck that we watched Ari Lax win the Pro Tour with, Steve Rubin winning Columbus 2 weeks ago. He was the designer of the deck that Ari won with. Those 2 are teammates on Team TCG Player. Neither one of those players had Offensa in their deck, but Boswell does.
And this is a card we've seen in some players' lists and not in others. Mike SCGRICH was playing it early in the Open Series. We saw Matt Costa playing Anafenza as well. Not necessarily a staple, but certainly not rogue either.
4 mana for a Sorin. That'll come down. It'll generate a vampire. Pass the turn back.
If I'm Boswell, I'm pretty happy with this situation because this means I'm going to get a pair of 3/4s next turn.
Time to untap. It's time to draw.
And I'm not sure. So Wingmate Rock is that it's so variable in these matchups. If you only get a 3/4, it's really underwhelming for 5 mana, but when you get the pair of 3/4s, it is among the best cards in the matchup.
There's a Wingmate Rock. Trigger the raid. 3/4 will join it. Pass the turn back.
There you have it, 2 3/4s. Mardu will be hard-pressed to answer this.
Yeah, the big question is, does he have something like an Hostilities? And he does have 2 in his sideboard, does Steven?
Yep. So out of the board, you can 1-for-1 with a double rock, but main deck, it's very difficult to do, and it's just the right size. Elspeth doesn't work against it. BioBlade doesn't work against it.
It's almost like they designed it that way. Maybe those guys know what they're doing up there. There's a Hordeling Outburst. It's actually one of my favorite parts about that card is that it doesn't die to Elspeth. It doesn't die to BioBlade.
My favorite part is that it only has 3 power.
Yeah, it's very strange, but it's really cool that it dodges and fades all of these things. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Looks like Steven forgot to use his Sorin that turn. Passed his turn a little bit too quickly.
He knows it right away.
Hordeling Outburst, yeah.
In his defense, if you had to pick a game to miss that trigger, I'm not sure. I don't think this is going to change. It doesn't seem like it's going to change the outcome. He's very far behind, and yeah, a plus. All it would have done was bring Sorin to 3. I don't think he would have been able to attack, and Sorin still would have died to this bird token. So it doesn't actually change the board.
And Offensa is going to come in. It's going to give a counter to the actual Wingmate Rock, not the token. Of course, the trigger from the Wingmate Rock will allow Boss to gain a little bit of life. And he says, Wingmate Rock token is going to go after Sorin. The rest is going to go after you. Block however you'd like.
Yeah, the miss trigger is not really going to end up mattering here.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. It's pretty far behind at this point, and Hostilities is the card that could turn the game around. Of course, you don't want to ever make a mistake with your Planeswalkers and forgetting to use them, but I think I agree with you.
Well, it wouldn't. Yeah, it just wouldn't have done anything. I don't think it'd have attacked, and it still would have been lost to this combat. So you can let that one go and just be like, all right, well.
Dupal going to block the Anafenza. What's the follow-up here? Is this maybe another Wingmate Rock? Oh my!
Let's just see if he has end hostilities.
I mean,
let's just make him have one.
We're gonna find out right now, right? If he doesn't have one, he better draw one.
Nope, doesn't have one, and that is actually 14 power in the air because of the Anafenza putting another counter on a Wingmate Rock. Right, that will be 14.
Yep, there's Elspeth, and I don't think Steven realizes this too. Took me a minute as well.
Well, he can -3.
Ah, sure, okay.
And that buys him a turn.
Pass the turn back over to Boswell. So Steven's still alive here, not facing lethal attack. Thoughtseize is the draw here for Boswell. Looks like he's going to use that one.
And it's often the case in these mid-range matchups games can be pretty swingy because of the one-for-one nature of all the cards on each side. Once one player gets ahead, it's very hard for the other person to catch up. Which is why I think with these first two games, we've really seen one player kind of just snowball an advantage.
Boswell. Beatdowns. And he says, I'm going to get Elspeth off the table. And I actually like the attack of Elspeth here because like you could very easily just ignore it and say, okay, I'll put you down to 5.
That doesn't change the clock.
Yeah, and then if he draws on hostilities, it's a disaster.
Right.
So I do like that attack. Going to put him down to 8 instead. Is Steven going to draw a card? He'll pick up the rest of them. Andrew Boswell going to win game number 2 here over Steven Dupal. Hobbs on mid-range and Mardu mid-range headed to game number 3.
As quickly as Dupal takes game 1, Boswell equals it up with taking game 2. And it's interesting, both games, Boswell had a double wingmate rock hand, and it's just night and day. Game 1, it seems terrible that he had 2 wingmate rocks. They did nothing to keep him back, to keep him in the game. So when he's behind, wingmate rock is just very weak. But then in game 2, you got to see how the double wingmate rock hand is when you're ahead, and it's backbreakingly good.
Yeah, it's very difficult to come back from because now we're talking about, oh, well, his outs they're super reduced to end hostilities.
Yeah,
that's basically it. They were
or like double bioblight hands, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, Murder's Cut isn't great against it. Neither is Crackling Doom, obviously. These 1-for-1s where they don't care. Same thing with Stoke the Flames. So wingmate rock, it is night and day between player draw or when you're ahead and behind.
Right.
We'll take a look at Season 2 of 2015, which was announced recently. We'll be going to Syracuse to start, Providence after that. Then we'll go to the best city in the country in Cleveland, Ohio. Follow that up with the second best city in the country, which is Seattle, Washington. You and Patrick will be there, and I'll be battling my little heart out that weekend.
Yeah, so we start out there. After Seattle, we're going to go, after our going out west, we then move down south to Dallas, where Cedric and I will be covering that tournament. Then back up into the east with Worcester until we finish things up of this short season with the Invitational in Columbus.
I had a feeling when we're in Dallas, we're probably going to watch Aaron Barrett make top 8 while we're there, since that's just a regular theme whenever we do the show in Dallas. It's just basically lock it up. Maybe you'll have a different hat or whatever, but you can basically lock it up. That's Season 2, as you mentioned. Pretty short season. We're gearing up for a pretty crazy summer after the Season 2 Invitational. Can't wait to release the details about that for you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Probably got a Grand Prix thrown in there, some sweet Open Series events, some new locations. We're going to Houston for the first time in Season 1, so it's going to be exciting. This is the big game 3 here for the player on the left.
Yeah. As we said before, Boswell currently in 19th. You can see that next to his name. 12th is the position he needs to get to. He's within striking distance, but he's going to need at least one top 8. A top 8 would get him into the conversation. A win would get him into the picture.
That's the big thing here. The win gets him in, as you said. The top 8, I mean, it's good. He's not unhappy with the top 8. It's impossible to be unhappy with the top 8. But this first things first, you got to get this game.
Yeah. First thing, you have to make the top 8,
yeah.
And that's gonna fall in this game. This game 3 versus Steven Dupal. Play versus draw, not that huge in this matchup.
I don't think so. And the fact that Boswell, his deck has acceleration and carry at it, means he can steal the initiative back. So that's always got to be pretty nice if you're Boswell.
You'd want to have carry added, if possible. You'd like to have carry added or Thoughtseize. Carry added can steal the initiative back. Thoughtseize can take the wind out of your opponent's sails. Dupal probably has a hand that builds up toward 1 or 2 key threats.
He's giving it a long look. He's going to keep it. I think Boswell will too. So we're underway here. Nomad Outpost will start things off here for Steven. Boswell's draw was a copy of Wingate Rock. He has to try land as well in Sandstep Citadel.
You can see those setup turns for these decks. And I think the decider for Dupal was I don't think he has a 3rd land.
He does now. Temple of Triumph.
Ooh. All right.
And that might help him find the 4th one.
Land 4.
Yeah.
It's going to get there. And now that that's been enabled, you see his hand, Butcher of the Horde, Read the Bones. Lots of great tools will be at his disposal here.
It was a risky keep, but I definitely understand it. There's Sylvan Carry added. Ooh, somebody doesn't have a 3rd land. It's actually Boswell.
Both players keeping 2 landers. One of them turning out a lot better than the other. You could see Dupal, it looks like 3, he has Crackling Doom or Butcher of the Horde here. He's going to go for the mana denial.
Yeah, this is really interesting to me. If you're supposed to play Crackling Doom to take care of the Caryatid, or if you're supposed to deploy the Butcher and get some beatdowns going. Boswell could draw land this turn, but I don't think he did. He's got a whole bunch of Siege Rhinos in his hand. He also has a Courser of Crewfix too, but he does not have land number 3.
It's going to be painful for Boswell here if he draws his lands on curve, and they're untapped. Those are a bunch of big ifs. I do think Courser into Siege Rhino, Siege Rhino, Siege Rhino is good enough.
It's likely. It's likely. He does have 3 Rhinos, as you mentioned. That train of Rhinos could get the job done. It's time to discard. He's going to discard 1 Rhino.
It's a crash of Rhinos, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. If you're Boswell, you're hoping your opponent has a bunch of removal or not a creature, or maybe he takes the turn off to cast Read the Bones, something. Doesn't want to see that.
No, and once you get behind here, it's pretty bad. And I think this is a situation where Dupal, he went for the greediest play of playing Rabble Master here. He may have wanted to make Butchers. You saw that Bile Blight happened.
It's a big draw for Boswell. It's a land. It's not a second green source, but it's a land.
Yeah, he can't, so he still cannot play that Courser of Crewfix.
Now think about what would happen if Steven had played Butcher that turn.
Yeah.
So much different. There's land number 5.
It's still probably fine. Remember, comebacks are very difficult in this matchup.
He's going to cast Read the Bones. That's going to resolve. I'm surprised by the sequencing.
I'm surprised to see him not get ahead on the board. And this is a situation where actually this is very good for Boswell. So in these mid-rangey matchups, a lot of times what you want to do is just, while your opponent's not doing anything, you want to get 1 to 2 creatures ahead on the board because it's very hard to lose from that spot. Now, Dupal's setting up for a fight later on with these card draw spells, which means he's not ahead on the board, which is where he wants to be. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to lose that fight once it happens, because Read the Bones does help set him up for that. But if Boswell draws an untapped land here, he's got a shot.
Okay.
And there you go.
All
and
right.
This is huge for Andrew Boswell, a game which I don't think he imagined he would be in. Now here comes this crash of Rhinos.
Now that's one. Now don't forget, he did discard 1 of them. But you talked about, and this happened in the last game, right, where you get ahead and then it's like, okay, now I'll play my Wingmate Rock on the initiative, and I'm doing great. And we might actually see that materialize here in a little bit.
Let me just recap here. Boswell's the first person to stick a creature.
Yep.
Well, we're not sure if it's sticking. It might be getting murderous cut.
It may die. It may die.
But I don't think it's quantity of cards that matters right now. It's, I'm going to play a threat. Do you have the answer?
Take care of this. So Cut will take care of the Rhino. See the life totals, though, 2013 in favor of Boswell here. And he's found lands. He's got Siege Rhinos to cast. Steven is quickly untapping. He's drawing now. Let's see what we have. It's a Battlefield Forge.
Life totals matter to a point, but it's really control of the board I think that you're going to see these players go for.
So let's see what threat he wants to deploy here. Does he want to go with the Planeswalker? He's got 2 copies of Butcher of the Horde. He's going to go with Sarkhan. So he'll tap 5 mana. That's going to come in. It's an attack for 4. Boswell's going to go down to 16.
Well, the scary thing is Dupal's next turn. He'll have enough mana to make both Rabble Master and Butcher of the Horde, which means he can give the Butcher haste off the Rabble Master token, and that'll be very difficult for Boswell to answer.
It's a lot of damage.
And Boswell, meanwhile, probably is just left here making Siege Rhinos.
Temple of Malady was the draw.
So what Boswell has going for him are these life points. See if he can put them to good use.
Yeah, 16, potentially up to 19.
Yep, he has some room to work with. But remember, next turn he's going to take 10 in the air.
It's a lot.
There's some reprieve, though. If that play happens, Boswell does get to make some Wingmate Rocks. There's not all as bad.
Yeah, these next 2 turns are going to decide it, I think. Draw step to draw step. The Scry for Boswell with the Temple. Does he want to cast the Rhino this turn?
Looks like he's going to go for Courser.
Going to play a little more conservative. Take a look at the top cards. A copy of Thoughtseize. Not the most exciting draw in the world. But we know he has a Temple.
I'm interested by that one. He does, okay. He's
got
left
cut.
up Murderous Cut.
Yep.
And that's really big.
He's going to play the Temple. He's up to 17. A little Scry action. Does he want to draw Thoughtseize? It's a big question. Yes.
All
Okay.
right. It turns out that this decision is good on his part, too.
Yep.
Steven will likely make a Rabble Master and a Butcher.
Hordeling Outburst, the draw.
And Andrew will get to be able to take the other. He'll be able to kill a Butcher and then take the other Butcher with Thoughtseize.
Steven plays land number 7. It's a 3rd Battlefield Forge. Boswell patiently waiting. And it looks like Dupal has come to a play that he is happy with.
I think it starts with Butcher the Horde.
Yeah, the big question is how do you order the spells?
And we'll see which Goblin card he wants to power it out, give it haste with, whether it's Rabble Master or Hordeling Outburst.
You can see he's a little unsure of himself. He's going to go with Hordeling Outburst.
It's interesting. Okay. I somewhat expected him to make the Rabble Master there, but this is good as well.
Now he's going to go after this. This turn is working out great for Boswell. He's not taking that much damage, and he's got a Murderous Cut here for the Butcher, the Horde.
So yeah, and that's really interesting there. He did not attack with the Sarkhan. Instead, he killed the Courser, opting for more controlling route.
Oh my goodness.
Steven sacking 2 cards to give
goodness.
lifelink and haste to the Butcher. He's going to pay for that one.
Yes, he is. Murderous Cut's going to get that off the table. And don't forget, Boswell's left Thoughtseize on top of his deck on purpose, and it's going to be huge now. He's going to untap. He gets to draw this.
He gets Thoughtseize and Siege Rhino here.
There it is. Butcher and Rabble Master.
And what looked like a lost game for Boswell, it's not won yet, but a window has opened. He can't answer. He's got to take the Butcher, and he does. Just Rabble Master remains. Can Boswell fight through all these cards? Here's Siege Rhino.
He's up to 17 now. Dupal's down to 9. Dupal's life total is very relevant here, by the way.
Dupal can't block this Siege Rhino. This is actually a tough spot for him. He drew, I believe, Murderous Cut.
Big draw.
Big draw. I mean, if he hadn't drawn Murderous Cut there, Boswell would have gotten to attack with Siege Rhino and make 2 Wingmate Rocks, which, as we've seen before, can be a death sentence in this matchup.
Steven going to tap 3 mana. That's a Rabble Master. He's already reaching for Murderous Cut, so you got to get that thing out of here.
Delving the rest of his graveyard there.
Yep. Boswell knew that one came off the top of the deck. And now we're attacking for 4, 5, 6 points of damage. 17 minus 6 will put you down to 11. Boswell's turn to draw a card. Bile Blight the draw. That one's a little bit interesting. Also has a Courser in hand along with a Wingmate Rock. So he could work his way towards Courser plus Bile Blight.
That will take care of most of what he needs to. Now, he still doesn't have an answer for Sarkhan. But if he can play Courser plus Bile Blight, if he can find a window to swing that Courser in, he can make 2 Wingmate Rocks, and he'll go to a really low life total.
Yep.
But maybe it's enough.
Dupal, no cards in hand. So he's at the mercy of Boswell. First things first. I think a land here on top is really important. Okay, that's going to come in. He's up
Great.
12.
Life points are what he needs here.
That's good too.
And that's the answer to Sarkhan he was looking for. Hero's Downfall. I cannot imagine he'll shuffle that away.
Nope. Oh, he's barely hanging on.
If you're Boswell, you have to be thrilled that this game's still happening.
Let's see what the top deck is here for Dupal.
I want to see how he manages the Courser.
It looks like with a copy
Chain
of
to
Chain
the
of the
Rocks.
Rocks. Another big draw for him. The top deck's back and forth between these two. Unbelievable.
And Dupal seems to have him at every angle. Every time we think Boswell's back in it.
Well, there's Bile Blight. That's going to take care of the Rabble Master. Sarkhan's going to tick up. It's time to attack for 6. Boswell's going to go down to 6. We know he's going to draw a Hero's Downfall. That'll take care of the Sarkhan.
He's actually at 5. He had to pain.
Oh,
for
you're
that.
right. You're right.
Yeah. Well, he has Hero's Downfall for the Sarkhan. He has Wingmate Rock as well. You think he has to Hero's Downfall here.
Wait, he's absolutely going to Hero's Downfall. He can do it in response to Sarkhan ticking up. We know that.
Yep.
So he's just going to pass the turn back. What he needs is for Dupal to miss for a couple of turns. What's
And
the draw?
You want to do it in response in case Dupal top decks another Sarkhan.
Yep. Yeah, he says tick up, downfall that. That's gone. Attack you. Put you to
Boswell's
3.
at 3. What is Dupal's draw?
I think it's just a land. We're going back Andrew's way. Andrew will draw a card.
It's Siege Rhino.
The 4th one.
And this, all right, 3 to 9 is going to go to 6 to 6. And if this Rhino can survive just one turn,
It needs to make it a turn.
then he'll get the 2 3/4s.
Dupal's draw, I think it was a
it's
land.
mountain.
There are no good attacks here. It's Mountain Bloodstain Mire.
And is this it? It looks like Boswell has, from being behind the entire game, has he turned the corner here? This is
That's the mountain. It is to
excellent.
pass the turn back. Boswell drawing.
You know, he checks, wants to make sure
Yep.
he's got this like
Yep.
total right.
Attacking.
Dupal goes to 2. And this Wingmate Rock is just a windmill slam.
Now, the interesting thing is here, does he want to block? And he sees kind of the Siege Rhinos is Stephen. That's the 4th one. Blocking here is actually under consideration, like a chump block, because Abzan Charm is just, it's lethal. Give +2/+2 to the Rhino.
Yeah.
So he might want to say, yeah, I think he's thinking, maybe I'll throw one of these Goblin tokens in front of that
You
thing.
probably just can't beat Ops on Charm.
I don't think you can beat it, yeah.
Because any stabilizing that Dupal would do would come. I think he wants 2 of them, so that in case he draws something like Butcher of the Horde, he can lifelink it or haste it. He needs that fuel.
He's going to take it. He's going to go down to 2. 5 mana. No damage dealt. There's a copy of Wingmate Rock.
This should do it. 1 draw left for Stephen Dupal.
What does he find? And hostilities!
And he top decks Boswell right back.
All right.
All right. I thought Boswell had it there. I
thought
thought
he
Boswell
had it
finally
too.
had it. No. More top decks. Let's go.
All right. What's the draw here for Boswell?
Is it a creature? The card in Dupal's hand is a bloodstained mire. It's not going to help him. Boswell with no draw there. Could be a
Dupal's
kill
turn.
spell.
Didn't get a great look at it. I think it's a copy of Crackling Doom. He'll pass the turn back over to Boswell, who will draw. Boswell's draw was a copy of Hero's Downfall the last turn. I think it's a Sorin this turn, I think.
Sorin is a card that gets 1/1 by Crackling Doom.
It may not be that, though. He's sacrificing a fetch land. Perhaps it's Elspeth instead.
That would be excellent.
That would be very good, yes.
It's really hard to not take 2 damage from an Elspeth.
There's that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. I don't think he'd sacrifice that fetch land for funsies here. I think he's got something to do with it.
Low to make that play.
4.
No, you're right. It is Sorin. He wants to have the Hero's Downfall mana up. He minuses the Sorin. This means the Crackling Doom can 1/1 with it.
Yep, just take care of that and Sorin, but he gets to keep his life total high. He still stays at 5. Dupal's going to draw a card.
There's an argument if he...
Oh!
And Elspeth is the draw for Dupal. I say if he pluses the Sorin, maybe he can... Yeah, he just can't dodge Crackling Doom. There's no way.
It's going to come into play.
Remember, Boswell is out of Siege Rhinos. Does he want to sack this other Windswept Heath? He'll go to 3 to cast this Hero's Downfall. He probably still has to.
Yeah, this is tough. Yeah, because if he sacrifices the fetch line, he goes down to 4, and then he has to use the caves for a black mana to go down to 3, and
It's
then he's
not
facing
good.
lethal. I don't love the prospect of that.
But it's going to happen.
I think it might have to.
I think it has to, because if you think about what he needs to draw, it's something like Courser of Crufix, right? That's a draw that gets him gets him there. Bioblight's not bad,
Elspeth is probably his best draw.
right? And in all of those situations, he wants to have downfalled this turn.
Yeah. Because if he downfalls this turn and goes down to 3, it opens up the window for a lot of other cards.
Yep.
And if he doesn't, it closes the window on some cards. So going down to 3 is clearly not appealing in this situation, but I think it's something he probably has to do.
Yeah, it does open the window for some of Dupal's cards to kill him.
Yep.
That's what he doesn't. That's the bad news. The good news is it opens the window for some of his cards to win him the game. I mean, going down to 3, in the face of 3/1/1s.
It sucks.
Right.
Yeah, it sucks.
That's why it's bad.
Yeah. It's going to go down to 4.
And that means 3's coming.
Yep.
Here's his forest.
As good as the mana base is for this deck, it's not free. Fetch lands, pain lands, you got to pay the price. And there's the downfall.
Can he top deck an Elspeth back?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is an announcement.
He needs at least a ground creature. It can't be a land.
Tomorrow's Legacy Open.
All right, Boswell, you're at 3.
And it is $40 We are still taking registration for
That's a spell. What is this?
Premier IQ.
Wingmate Rock.
Wingmate Rock. Okay.
He's got a top deck.
Dupal has to top deck him back now.
Draw.
And it's
Oh my
Sarkhan.
God.
And that should do it. Sarkhan can kill Wingmate Rock.
Oh my God.
And 3 damage will come across. And there you have it. Stephen Dupal top decks him back again. What a turn of events there.
I have not seen that many back-to-back top decks ever in covering a match for SCG Live. Ever. Stephen Dupal wins this match over Andrew Boswell 2-1. Barely gets the job done. Mardu midrange moves on to 8-1. Wow.
And for Andrew Boswell, a really well-played game. And he stuck on lands for enough turns there. He was always on the back foot up until you thought he had it until that end house.
I thought they both had it every time. They were just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I thought when Boswell peeled the Wingmate Rock, that was a perfect draw, right? It's
It was
flyer.
great. Yeah. It kills him the next turn.
Yeah, the attack puts him down to 1. You know, it's one of the best draws he has in his deck. But Dupal ends up top decking one more turn better than Boswell. He wins the match 2-1. With any luck, he's able to draw into the top 8 now with Mardu midrange.
Yeah, congratulations to Stephen Dupal on the win.